Well, I'm starting out this session by talking about Proverbs. This is the title I give to Proverbs. Proverbs is wisdom to live by. Now, this is something we can be very thankful for. Hallelujah, it's good news that God isn't just interested in what we're going to do through eternity, although he is interested in that, and that's really, really important, obviously. But he doesn't just care about what happens to us eternally. He cares about what happens to us in our years here on this earth. Because Proverbs is a book written by King Solomon, but inspired by God, that describes what it's like to live a life filled with wisdom right here and right now. And if God didn't care about that, well, why would he have this book of wisdom for us to receive from? The Lord appeared to Solomon in a dream and said, "Ask what you wish me to give you." Solomon said, give your servant an understanding heart to judge your people, to discern between good and evil. Solomon's wisdom is, for the most part, a gift from God. The major source of Solomon's wisdom is that he was given this wisdom. It was a gift from God. God then answered, "Because you have asked this thing, behold, I have given you." It's a gift. Whatever Solomon is going to tell us in this book called Proverbs, whatever he has to tell us, he's telling us first and foremost because he's received a gift from God. I have given you a wise and discerning heart, so that there has been no one like you before, nor shall one arise like you afterwards. Solomon says, my son, we would say, my child or my children, do not forget my teaching. Let your heart keep my words, for they are length of days and years of life, and peace they will add to you. According to Solomon, and therefore God, there are two ways to live life, two paths that we can follow. First option is the path of wisdom. This is the blessed life. These are just a handful of benefits that Solomon, and therefore God, says will follow us if we walk a path of wisdom. We'll be recipients of peace, long life and health, a good name, which means reputation, wealth, joy. And the joy is for those who choose wisdom, and it's especially the joy for the parents of those who choose wisdom. Path of foolishness, that's not the blessed life, that's the broken life. Here are some of the things that happen when a person chooses to follow a path of foolishness: calamity, distress, anguish, poverty, disease, strife, grief. Well, a huge part of the book of Proverbs is Solomon and pleading with his children. Won't you please choose the wise path of life? It's like any parent. Solomon wanted the best for his children. And he was, whether it's a good thing or bad, sometimes you wonder, he knew what was best. Now, the children don't always think and maybe we don't always know, but in this case, Solomon wrote down wisdom from God about how to live a life of wisdom and how to avoid the path of a broken life by choosing foolishness. Solomon and God are urging us, choose wisdom. Choose the path that leads to life. For example, here's one piece of sage advice, or maybe it's more like a warning. Solomon says, this is just one of many, many examples: avoid angry and violent people. Here's some reasons why. It's not an exhaustive list. These are some of Solomon's reasons. They're dangerous. They hurt others, and they're likely to hurt you. They have no mercy. They abuse power. Instead of that, the opposite, the flip side, and I love this about the book of Proverbs, it just doesn't tell you what not to do, it tells you what to do. Avoid this, but then choose this. And he says, hang out with wise folks. That's why I chose John Rice to be my friend. Hang out with wise folks, because they'll speak truth. They'll stick by you. They won't take advantage of you. They love peace. They are safe. And then there are many other reasons why that's a good course to follow. According to Solomon, all of us, you and me, each and every person alive, have a very powerful instrument. We're born with it. This instrument is so powerful that it can give life or it can bring death. It can bless or it can abuse. Now, if we were meeting in person again, I would ask, what is that instrument that each and every one of us has? And I know that you would know the answer. And here it is. It's the tongue, or our words, sometimes referred to as the tongue, sometimes as your lips, sometimes your mouth, or sometimes it's your words. Everybody has this instrument. Everybody has this capability of using our words for good or for bad. Let's try to get rid of that little thing that says set up professional audio in audio settings. So here are Solomon's admonition is use your words for blessing. Here's some examples of what he says in the book of Proverbs. The mouth of the righteous is a fountain of life, but the mouth of the wicked conceals violence. There is one who speaks rashly, like the thrust of a sword, but the tongue of the wise brings healing. A gentle answer turns away wrath, but a harsh word stirs up anger. A healing tongue is a tree of life, but perversion in it crushes the spirit. Pleasant words are like a honeycomb, sweet to the soul and healing to the bones. I picked five examples of over 100 examples because the tongue, our words, is the number one topic that Solomon has in the book of Proverbs. I know it doesn't seem like it, but he has a Solomon's top 10 in which he lists and prioritized by the number of times he mentions them. This area of life is the most important thing you could possibly do to live a life of wisdom, and the tongue is number one. The tongue, what we say, our words, in Solomon's mind, and therefore it must be God's mind because God gave him this wisdom, what we do with our mouth is of the top priority of what it would look like to live either a life of wisdom or a life of foolishness. And so as I've over the years looked at these Proverbs and studied the book quite a while, I have found these things actually will happen to me, and I'll look at it, and sure enough, a short time later, a day later, a week later, an opportunity arises for me to put something into practice. Let me just give you one example, the middle one. A gentle answer turns away wrath, but a harsh word stirs up anger. Some years ago, I have an older sister, and when I became a Christian, she was one of those that was kind of antagonistic towards me and wasn't didn't always receive my testimony. I have to confess that I was pretty obnoxious back then too. But anyway, she and I would frequently, and she didn't live nearby, thankfully, but whenever we met or talked over the phone or something, it was not uncommon for us to have some kind of a head-butting about my faith and things that she had against me or my faith. But then I read this: a gentle answer turns away wrath, harsh words stirs up anger. I thought, well, the best place I could put that to practice is the next time I talk to my sister. Sure enough, just a day or two later, my sister calls me, and she starts with some kind of a line of questioning or speech that is almost like a bait to me, to get me to lose my Christianity and come out swinging. I mean, I can kind of sense that she's drawing me into her mad whatever. And so this verse comes to mind. And whatever she just said, I said to her, well, you could be right. There was a pause, total silence on the other end of the phone. Then she says something else, something a little bit antagonistic. And then when she gets done, I said, I never thought of it that way. You could be right. And finally, after a pause, she says, stop patronizing me. But I want you to know that every conversation that we had after that, there was a noticeable difference in our words to one another. Every single conversation in the years following. That sister died of breast cancer, just in her 50s. And she and her husband invited me to be with them when she knew it was her last days of life. That was a gift from God, you see, all because of the wisdom of God that Solomon spoke, that a gentle answer turns away wrath. These words of Solomon are life-giving. More than any other activity, human activity, words can build up or tear down. They can encourage or discourage. They can set people free or enslave them. They can bring forgiveness or condemnation. They can foster peace or stir up strife. They can heal or they can harm. The power of life and death is in the tongue. Here's a question I have for you to consider. Do you have any wounds that have been inflicted by words? You would be very unusual. You might even be unique if you didn't. The word that we use a word called unspeakable. The development of that word first occurred many, many years ago in a therapy session. And the therapist first coined the word unspeakable because the person receiving therapy could not speak of the trauma that she endured. She could not speak it. The therapist came up with that word, coined the word unspeakable. And of course she did that because being able to speak about the wound is in fact normally one of the steps to being healed. I just want to pause a moment here and let's open our hearts to God and ask Him to identify for us. Probably there's more than one, but identify one wound that we might have that was inflicted upon us by words. Let Him bring one to mind. In our breakout session later, you may have an opportunity if God gave you something to share there. Or the other side of the coin, I'm so sorry that I even have to bring this side of the coin up. Have you inflicted wounds with your words? I can only say that I have. I don't want to say much more than that, other than I am so thankful that God is a God of mercy. You would be probably the unique individual on earth if you have not received a wound by words, or if you have not inflicted a wound by words, you would probably be unique. But God is merciful to heal our wounds and to forgive us when we've wounded others. Hallelujah. According to Solomon, wisdom does not hurt, wound, or abuse with words. Wisdom gives life with words. I love this quote from Henry Nouwen. The characteristic of the blessed ones is that wherever they go, they always speak words of blessing. It is remarkable how easy it is to bless others, to speak good things to and about them, to call forth their beauty and truth. The Blessed One always blesses. Why bother? Why stoop to using words in an offensive or harmful or hurtful way? Why go there when it's so easy to speak blessing? Words of life, receiving, then giving. The power and desire to speak words of life to others is the direct result of hearing those kind of words for ourselves, words of love and peace and blessing, spoken to our hearts in solitude, words that proceed from the heart of God. It's hard to give something away that we haven't received ourselves. So first, let's wait alone in silence with God so we can hear his words of tender love and forgiveness and blessing. There's one person who walked this earth, who surpassed all others in the history of this world in his ability and desire to speak words of blessing and life. And I don't even have to show you this screen, but here it is anyway. That person is Jesus. Jesus, our example, our teacher, our inspiration, our motivation, our Lord. Here's John 1, who says it as succinctly, I think, as it can be said. In the beginning was the Word. Just be thinking about, these ideas of Solomon's ideas of what we do with our words. And now Jesus being personified, being equated with the capital Word. In him was life. In other words, in his words were life, because he was the Word. In him was life, and that Word became flesh. The words that he wanted to speak, the life he wanted to speak, he wanted to come here to you and me to speak it. He could have spoken it in heaven, couldn't he? He wanted to come to earth so you and I could hear these words that are full of grace and truth, it says. Well, if Jesus is the Word, what would it be like, I wonder, to hear him speak? Let's just say you're good friends with the state-winning track team. And the track team comes and they introduce the track team to you and they call everybody by name. And then they get to this one guy or gal, depending on whether it's a girls or boys track team, and they say, we call him Flash. Well, I wonder what it would be like to have a race with Flash if the rest of the state-winning track team calls this one guy Flash. Man, what would it be like to watch him run? Next group that comes up to you is the world's best wrestling team. And they introduce all these wrestlers to you, and then they get to this one big dude and they say, this guy's We call him Crusher. Well, you know, what would it be like to wrestle the guy who the wrestling team calls Crusher? Because there's something about the name that people give you that tells you something about you. Well, Jesus is called the Word. What would it be like to hear Jesus then speak? Jesus' words to the adulteress: grace, I don't condemn you. Truth, don't keep on sinning. Jesus spoke words of life to her. And here are some of his words to others. Come and follow me. An invitation to you and me. Come and follow me. The Father himself loves you. I am the good shepherd. Live in my love. Love one another as I have loved you. Don't be anxious and don't fear. You are children of God. I've come to give you abundant life. They're words filled with grace and truth. Or these hope-filled words. This is Advent, the season of hope. Well, here are some hope-filled words for your Advent celebration. You are my beloved child. Come to me and find rest. My peace I leave with you. I do not condemn you. And I love this one. I will not abandon you as orphans. I am coming to you. Be on the lookout. Be ready, because Advent means the coming. I am coming to you. It's Greek. It's the present tense, which is always a progressive thing. It's not just I came once. It's not just I will come one more time. I am coming to you. That's what he says. It's a continual thing. Well, let's be looking for Jesus coming. I am not going to abandon you. And the reason you can be sure I'm not going to abandon you is I am going to be coming to you. Another reason I like this is I work with a mission in Honduras. Part of the mission is we are connected to an orphanage there. And these orphans, the kids at this orphanage have wrapped my wife's and me and around their finger. They have locked onto our heart, and it's just, we can't let go. They have us in not a death hold, I guess they have us in a life grip, and we can't let them go. Well, the orphanage is across the street from our compound. In our compound, we have a home for the boys, and we have our guest house where our teams stay when we go down, or I rent it out to other mission groups when we're not there. Well, it just so happens, I won't give you the full story, but the little girls, and you can see them in the picture on the left there, some of those are teenage volunteers that came with us a couple years ago on one of our trips. But the rest of those little girls are all girls that live together in one house across the road from us. The older teenage girl holding a little girl on the right, her name is Rosita. Back then she was, I guess, 14. Now she's a 17-year-old, and she's like the junior mama of this group of smaller girls. She herself was raised from a child at this orphanage. And the lady who raised her, they call her Mommy Chus, raised her, and now she is Mommy Chus's junior mommy. And all the little kids tell her, you're just like Mommy Chus. She really is. She's like the permanent nanny for them. Well, anyway, these girls that live together, about a dozen of them lived across the road. There's a reason why they had to leave their house temporarily. And so Mommy Chus asked me if the girls could come and live in the upstairs part of our guest house in our compound. Well, it's no real big problem because with COVID and all, where not many groups are making trips down there. It's a big enough place that they could be in the upstairs in one area and still we could have groups come. So it was a no-brainer. Sure, of course, we'd love to have those girls stay up in the upstairs of our guest house. Then Mommy Chu says, well, the girls have a puppy. They have a dog. Oh, well, we have a policy for our compound. No pets allowed. No dogs, no exception. So they are welcome, but they'll have to find, and it's supposed to be a temporary situation. It's been 4 months, but still a temporary situation. I think you'll have to find somebody else to leave the dog with. And there are other people still up there. This was just one portion of the kids that were coming. No, you can't bring the dog. Then Mommy Chu, I'm communicating through WhatsApp. Mommy Chu says, Rosita wants to talk to you. She's a 17-year-old junior mommy. And Rosita's going to write to you. So later that day, I get a WhatsApp from Rosita. I don't have to tell you why we don't allow dogs, do I? I mean, you have common sense just like I do. This is why you wouldn't have a dog in your compound. Do I need to spell it out? I'm not going to. But here's one reason. One of our teams went down one time, and they have dogs from time to time at the Hogar, the orphanage. One of our team members was bit in the face by a large dog. Had to have emergency surgery, stitches put in that very trip before she got home. That's just one reason. There are legitimate reasons we don't allow pets, especially dogs. But as you can see, that puppy right there, that's not an actual picture, but it looks like that puppy. It's a very small breed. And I know there was not a great likelihood of that puppy causing a death, having a death kind of inflicting deathful injury on anybody. I knew all of that, but there are other problems, and you make one exception and then that just opens the door. So anyway, I guess I'm trying to justify my decision, but there are no pets allowed. I want to make sure you understand that. But then Rosita sends a WhatsApp. But Rosita doesn't write anything on the WhatsApp. All she does is have like a half a dozen recorded messages. These recorded messages are from the little girls, 6 and 7 and 8-year-old girls. And in every one of them, I play the message. And it's this little girl, and a lot of times I can identify which one it is. That's Jenny, or that's Esther, or, Anyway, it's Jenny, and she's saying, Owen, please, Owen. Can't we please bring the puppy? The puppy means so much to us. Then she cuts off, and then right on the tail end, there's another one. There's Marcela. Owen, it's our puppy. And here it gives the name of the puppy. Can't the puppy come? I'm thinking at this point, this is unfair battle tactics. This is not fair, I'm thinking. I get about a half dozen of those voice messages. And no words, no other written message. That's it. That's Rosita's message to me. I write Mommy Chu's back. She's using Mommy Chu's phone. And I write Mommy Chu's back. I say, that is not fair. That's not fair. But the answer is still no. I know, I'm heartless, I know. But then Rosita does write. And this is what she writes me. Dear Owen, I'm writing to you to obtain your permission. We have a puppy because the puppy brings the little girls much joy. The other reason we embrace this puppy is that we are orphans. We have all been abandoned by fathers and mothers. We don't want to abandon this puppy into the care of others, as has been done to us. I guess I should tell you that that puppy now lives at our guest house. Puppy brings the children joy. We can't stand the thought, having been abandoned ourselves, to abandon this puppy to somebody else's care. Likewise, you bring Jesus joy. He will not abandon you to the care of others. I will not abandon you as orphans, Jesus said. I'm coming to you. Well, you know, if those children care so much about a puppy, the well-being of that puppy, if children could care about a puppy so much, well, how much more does Jesus care about you? If those children are unwilling to abandon a puppy, how much more would Jesus be unwilling to abandon you? I will not abandon you as orphans. I am coming to you. Look for my advent. Here's some examples of his coming. He came at Pentecost in the presence of the Holy Spirit, which is an ongoing thing for us. The Spirit came and he didn't go back home. He came and he stayed so he can continue to come to us. In Acts, while the disciples were praying in the midst of the persecution, that God would give them opportunities to speak, then they said, while you, Jesus, extend your hand to heal. Jesus extending the hand. It was the time of greatest wonders and miracles, and every miracle that was done in that day, they're saying, you, Jesus, are the one that was there extending your hand to heal, and it still is. The blessing from God upon us is coming from the hand of Jesus, meaning he has to be there. He was there in the shaking the places of prayer and worship. He was there when they were in prayer, fellowship, teaching, and the breaking of bread together, because where 2 or 3 are gathered in my name, there I am. I'm coming to you. When Paul was in distress, it said the Lord stood by his side. He was right there. Paul on a sinking ship. Don't be afraid, Paul. You must stand before Caesar. I'm right here. And ultimately, this Jesus will return just as you have watched him go to heaven. This blessing time in your breakout rooms, these blessings are like speaking words of life. Words of life build up, they encourage, they set people free, they bring forgiveness, they foster peace, they heal wounds, they renew strength, and they give hope. My suggestion, again, God leads you some other way, I would choose the way God leads. But here's a couple of suggestions. As you pause in your silence to see what God would bring to your heart, consider this question. Do you have unhealed wounds inflicted by words? You probably have more than one, but if God brings one to your heart and mind, then maybe that's what he's asking you to share today. Do you have unhealed wounds inflicted by words? Or Is there an area of your life in which you feel hopeless or deserted or abandoned? Do you feel hopeless about anything? Well, Advent is a season of hope. So when you break out into your breakout rooms, please start with silence. Listen for what the Spirit of God would say to you. Share what words you feel you should share, while then the others offer blessing prayers for you. God is coming to you. He's not going to abandon you.